Hello and welcome. My screen name is Covert Muffin. This is going to be a heavily commentated run of Cadence of Hyrule, story percent, no major glitches. So Cadence of Hyrule is pretty much Crypt of the Necrodancer, which is an indie game on PC. However, they did a collaboration with Nintendo and adopted a Crypt of the Necrodancer style game with the Zelda formula at heart. This is a randomizer speedrun, so it is going to be a random seed. And so it is going to be both a map and an item randomizer. So if you're unfamiliar with Crypt of the Necrodancer, pretty much there's going to be music that is playing in the background, and you're only allowed to be able to move on the beat of the tempo. That being said, there is going to be some tolerance that we are going to be utilizing as we're going to progress through. Here we can either choose Zelda or Link at the start, as I open and close the map, which we'll be talking about a little bit later on. And Zelda, we're going to pick in particular because Nehru's Love is an absolutely amazing ability. It pretty much gives us 2 beats of invulnerability, as well as a reflect, both melee and projectile attacks, if we do it on the beat that the attack would be coming in and colliding with our hitbox. So as I'm going to be moving around, you'll see me open and close the map. And this is because it does not actually cost me any time, because I'm only allowed to move on the tempo. Then while I have the map open, the music is actually still playing in the background. So if I can't move any faster, I may as well just open the map and be able to get that scouting information. And this tech in the community is known as bleep blooping, which is just the sound effect that the tech makes. And because speedrunners are meatboards, they named it after that. So if you're unfamiliar with the Zelda formula, pretty much there's going to be items that we're going to be tracking down and finding, which allow us to gain new abilities. Here we're going to be playing the song for the Gerudo theme, which is dark green, yellow, light blue, and dark blue. Pretty good. Which the order is always going to be the same, and then after playing it twice, we will get the power gloves. But that being said, the music notes are actually randomly placed. But the color order is always going to be the same. Next here, we're going to be picking up the loot, which we can actually do in one of 4 different locations. Here we're going to do it in Gerudo Desert because it is the fastest to do so. Then I'm going to be activating this fast travel location, which the loot allows us to be able to fast travel to these locations after I activate them, to be able to backtrack a little bit quicker later on. And that fast travel location that we got in Gerudo Ruins is going to be access to one of the 4 temples that we actually have to end up completing before I can finish out the run. So, that being said, the Zelda formula, if you're unfamiliar with Zelda games, pretty much we have to go around and finish out 4 dungeons, 4.5 really, allowing us to get access to a boss fight at the end of the dungeon, which unlocks a key item, and then after I collect each of the key items, then I can actually get access to the final dungeon, which is Hyrule Castle, allowing us to fight the final boss, spawning the end credits of the game, and closing out the run. Dipping down here. So here, I said there's 4.5 dungeons. There in Kakariko Village is going to be that half of a dungeon. And that is going to be getting us the Hibiscus Flask, which allows us to wake Link up. So, the starting character doesn't actually decide who you are required to play. It only decides who you are going to be starting the run as well as your starting position on the map. If you actually start with Link, you spawn near the bottom of the map, but if you spawn as Zelda, you spawn in the middle of the map, giving you easier access to all areas of the map in particular, right? Because if you start at the bottom of the map, you have to travel further to get to the top of the map, for instance. So there's going to be another dungeon, which we're going to come back to later, which is going to be the Frozen Grotto, which I just kind of call the Ice Temple. So as I'm moving around this overworld section of the map, these tiles are actually randomly placed down, but there are specific tiles that are always going to spawn in various positions or have a mode of logic which decides where they can and cannot spawn. There, I just picked up a very special torch, which is going to be called the Torch of Wisdom, which I just sort of call offhand the Item Torch. This allows me to peek into chests as well as to walls to be able to see what sort of item is hidden within said locations without having to open the respective location to be able to check those ahead of time. Hoping for bombs here. And this is going to save a significant amount of time in every single seed that I actually end up doing. So I'll point out once I get into sort of like a dungeon or an area that I am going to utilize the item torch to be able to decide whether or not I actually chase down a specific hidden item. So here's going to be Lost Woods. So entering and then exiting on the side will actually sometimes allow me to go into a different entrance. That's fine. And so we are going to come back to Lost Woods later on once again. But now that I have the item torch, we are going to come into Kakariko to get the Hibiscus Flask. So now this is going to be a lot closer to traditional Crypt of the Necrodancer, which are going to be sort of these dungeon areas. So basically, you can think of each floor of a dungeon to be sort of in the shape of a square, as I'm going to take a fight with the shopkeeper, which I'll explain a little bit later on why I do this. Yeah, I have no stamina. But basically, killing the shopkeeper gets us a coupon, which allows us to buy a single item for free. So when you quit the menu, it doesn't fully heal you, but it fully refills your stamina. And rerolls the Kakariko dungeon in particular. Oh, the rapier as well. Let's go. Cool. Okay. So every single dungeon, the second floor of each dungeon has a golden chest, which requires a key to be able to open it. And it will spawn a specific weapon. Which weapon is decided is randomized between seeds. But if I were to reroll Kakariko, for instance, it will just have the same weapon each time on the same seed. So there we got the rapier, which is a Zelda-specific weapon. And it is the best weapon for Zelda in the entire game. Which I'll talk about a little bit later on. But there, defeating Shadow Link allows us to get the Hibiscus Flask. Quitting to menu is a little bit faster than just backtracking all the way to the ladder. This quitting to menu spawns me back at the ladder, allowing me to exit the graveyard dungeon a little bit faster. Cool. So here I'm actually going to go to a secret area behind Hyrule Castle, equip the rapier. Pressing down, it's moving like left and right. And this allows me to infuse my weapon with one of 5 or 4 different possible infusions. I'm going to go Titanium, which just gives me a flat +1 damage to my attacks. No, I don't have the keys for it, so we're going to have to go to Goron. So there in the top left, it's going to be displaying my resources. I have 72 rupees, which are a basic currency. I have the coupon, which allows me to once again buy any item for free. I don't have to necessarily. And then I have 0 keystones and 1 diamond. Diamond is a bit of like a roguelike-esque resource, which allows, if I take a death, allows me to buy like heart containers and or resources that I would lose on death, such as a shovel or a torch or something else. So there's another special tile where it spawned like a laser turret that always drops the key. But here's going to be Goron Bomb Shop, and this is where we're going to spend the coupon in order to buy the Goron Locket, which is normally 200 rupees, and not have to pay any amount of money for it. Then I'm going to get Bomb Chews for a quick kill on a boss, which we are now going to be going into our first actual dungeon, which is going to have a boss fight. And there is going to be the hook shot, which is going to allow me to sequence break in a dungeon. Okay. So the 4 primary dungeons have 2 floors each, with a main room and then a boss fight arena. So here, we actually ended up skipping the first floor of the dungeon because I was able to get the Goron Locket and the flippers earlier in the run. The flippers allow me to swim in water, and then the Goron Locket allows me to utilize the flippers to swim in lava. I don't have enough money. All right. So there, I just barely don't have enough money to be able to buy that keystone. So using a bomb on the shop walls and or those sort of golden vases that are filled with gold allow me to get some additional rupees to supplement my amount, allowing me to afford a keystone in the shop. So each floor in the dungeon has a mini-boss hidden behind a key door. Then defeating that mini-boss opens up a staircase back to the primary room, allowing me to progress in the dungeon. Then after the second floor in the dungeon, that will get me the boss key and lead me to the boss fight. So here, this is all sort of planned out and scripted. This boss fight's always going to be the same. So I just have all of this routed out and planned out for exactly how I'm going to take down the boss in the fastest way possible. Cool. So we didn't quite get the full quick kill, just simply because I had 4 bombs going into the boss fight instead of 5. But that was still a very fast boss fight. Okay, so here in Lost Woods, there's going to be 4 tiles in general. that are all going to look the same, and pretty much we want to exit on the side that has the specially colored enemy, or the special unique enemy. So there's going to be the mummy. I meant to use the hookshot there instead of the bomb shoot, but that's okay. That's what I meant to do. So there, the dark colored wolf was on the right, so we're going to exit to the right. And then the last tile is always going to be the same, which is exiting up. And that is going to allow me to progress to the entrance to the Forest Temple itself. So here, this is a Lionel. There's specific, like, sort of mini-boss-esque enemies, and they end up dropping one of a number of special random items, which could be like a Torch of Wisdom. There we got a Golden Shovel, which, when you dig through walls, gives you a probability to find a random rupee. Up to 20 rupees, I believe. So there, using the item torch once again allows me to see into the walls, which allows me to track down the keystone. So every single floor on every single dungeon will have a keystone in a wall. However, only the second floor in each dungeon will have a keystone in the shop itself, which is important to note. So here, because I have 3 keystones, I'm actually going to skip the keystone in the shop itself. So here's a Zelda mini-boss fight. So there, I'm just allowing a beat to pass for the Zelda to let go. If I try to attack her on consecutive beats, then she'll go invulnerable and then attack, causing the fight to last for longer. Then after getting the boss key, I'm going to quit to menu, bringing me back to the entrance to the dungeon. Now I'm going to quit out of the dungeon and then revisit it later. So skipping the boss fight for now is done for a very specific reason. Unlike the Fire Temple, where we actually ended up fighting base Guitarmos immediately. And the reason for this is base Guitarmos, as well as this temple that we're going to be coming up to, the Temple of Storms, has multiple enemies that we actually have to kill in the boss fight itself. And so after you defeat your first 2 bosses, the remaining 2 bosses will actually end up having an increased health pool. So in the Forest Temple, as well as the Ice Temple, they actually only have 1 boss that we have to one enemy, as I do a floor 1 skip there, leading me to the second floor of the Temple of Storms, using the hookshot and a bomb tube. And so because of that, we want to face the boss fights that have more enemies earlier on, because then they have less health. Whereas if we face them later on, then we would have to do more attacks in total for all of the bosses combined, if I were to do the bosses in a different order. So a cool thing too with the Temple of Storms is that there's actually 3 key items that I can utilize besides the hookshot to be able to actually skip that first floor. Yep, so here we have to kill these 4 heads, which each of them would have an increased health pool if I face this boss as my 3rd or 4th. Utilizing bombs will actually end up dealing 3 damage. And then having 1 space between myself and the enemy with the rapier equipped will actually cause me to lunge forward and deal an extra damage, which is unique to the rapier as a weapon itself. So now that I've defeated both Glockenspiel from the Temple of Storms, as well as base Guitarmos in the Fire Temple from the Gerudo Ruins, I'm now going to end up taking down Gomarakas, which has an increased health pool because it is my 3rd boss that I'm facing. And Shadow Link is not included in this count from Kakariko, which is why I consider the Kakariko dungeon to be like half a dungeon. Cool. So that was okay RNG for the fight. Not amazing, not terrible.
Sorry.
But now I have 1 more temple to do, which is going to be the 2nd floor. And with the Power Glove, we can actually end up sequence breaking and skipping the 1st floor of the dungeon itself. So here, by sliding this block and then activating the Power Glove there, I'm actually able to move downwards instead of sliding all the way with the block. So a lot of cool aspects of this game in particular, in Crypt of the Necrodancer, is that enemies have very set behaviors with how that they will actually end up attacking and how they will actually end up moving. So I just have all these enemies memorized, and then I improvise on the spot to try and decide exactly how I want to move. No,
Oops.
come on, D-pad.
So I play using a Switch Pro controller, which I love the Switch Pro controller. It's my favorite controller I've ever owned. But the D-pad for the Switch Pro controller is absolutely terrible. And so there was just a little bit of a silliness where I was pressing a direction and it decided it did not want to move in that direction. Okay, so here's my final dungeon boss fight before I head into Hyrule Castle. So really good RNG for this fight. Not the best possible RNG, but still very good RNG. That was a very fast fight. So now, after you defeat a boss, it actually removes all of the enemies, allowing you to move without having to stick with the cadence of the tempo itself with your movement. And so we do the Frozen Grotto last because that is the closest possible location to the gate itself, which is the barrier.
RNG, and I need to execute.
So now, moving into Hyrule Castle, in order to get a sub 20 for myself, I need to be entering this door before the 15-minute mark. And we are at 14:18. So I know that I am on pace at this point.
Here we go.
So now entering Hyrule Castle, there's going to be 3 floors, followed by a boss fight, which is going to be Octavo. And so there, I need one more keystone to be able to finish out the siege. And there I find one of the most important items for going fast, which is going to be the compass. And that, at the start of each floor, is just going to show a blue arrow along the border of my map, which is going to tell me exactly where I need to go in order to exit to the next area. Which is amazing. So there I see the key in the wall, and I make the decision, even though it's in the opposite direction of the exit of this floor, to just go get this key so that I just know that I am good to finish out the siege. And now, on the final floor before the Octavo fight, I know that all I have to do is beeline for the exit on the final floor. So there's a glass weapon. So the glass weapons have the highest amount of damage out of each of the iterations of the weapons themselves. However, if I actually end up taking damage while holding a glass weapon, I will actually end up just losing that weapon entirely. Alright, and there it is. So after we defeat Octavo, which is going to have 5 phases to the fight in total, we will end up going to the final dungeon, which is going to be traveling into the future, going into Ganon's castle. So this is one of the largest portions of RNG in the run itself, besides just literally the overworld map and the dungeons themselves. Because Octavo, after you hit him, will actually end up teleporting to another area, unless I deal a total of 5 damage in a single attack, which requires a titanium weapon with damage boots,
corner is the worst,
as well as enchant weapon scroll.
It takes the longest to catch up.
But yeah, so there was bad RNG with Octavo. They spawned in the top left corner, and then after hitting Octavo, they moved to the bottom right. And because I can only move up, down, left, right, that is going to require me to move the furthest possible distance in order to catch up with Octavo. That was good RNG. They were Octavo's on the left side of the map entirely. And really good RNG there again.
Good RNG on the last phase. We lost time on the Octavo fight, though.
Yeah, I lost about like 10 to 20 seconds based on RNG alone. Which is pretty significant if you think about it.
I'm still in the hunt.
So here is going to be the most difficult portion of the entire run. So the compass from Hyrule Castle doesn't actually transfer here into Ganon's castle. It only counted for Hyrule Castle itself. So I have no idea where the exit is going to be. So similar to the other dungeons, in Ganon's castle, it is going to have a mini-boss fight on each floor. And then I have to defeat the mini-boss, which will open up the exit. And there's going to be 4 floors in total. So here's going to be the first one, which I actually found pretty quick, which was really nice. Yeah, so here's my goal is to figure out which corner of the map that I'm actually going to be entering on, which I figured I was in the bottom left corner. And then I'm going to either be looking for these teleporters, which is what I'm going to be moving into next,
which usually cause you to travel to the other side of the map. And usually bring you pretty close to the exit if you can actually end up tracking down the teleporter. So there, I note that I am in the bottom left again, so I'm going to use that information. But fortunately, the boss spawned in the bottom center, which is like really good RNG. That is incredibly good RNG. And there's the teleporter again, so I'm going to take it immediately to try and track down the boss. Still haven't seen it yet. And there I see it.
There he is. All right.
Yeah, over to the left. But as you can tell, this is a very scary sort of area because there's just so many enemies all over the place.
All right, here we fucking go.
So this final fight takes just under a minute. There's a strat, though, to be able to get through this fight. So this fight has 3 phases. So in the first 2 phases, Ganon's going to have 3 health, and you can only deal 1 damage to Ganon at a time. However, if you somehow drop Ganon's shield with an attack, and then deal damage to Ganon with a bomb, you will deal 2 damage instead. So there, using the reflect as Ganon's going to land, I will bring down the shield, and then the bomb exploding, if I time it correctly, deals 2 damage to Ganon. So now with the second phase, Ganon's going to jump either to the right or the left, not on top of Zelda like they did in the first phase. So I'm going to move really far away from Ganon to lure Ganon into jumping, and then use the bomb strat again. And then free one of the people to do the intended method for the fight itself. Okay, so they're attacking with one of them, and then using the second one will bring me through the second phase. And now in the final phase, all that's left is to get each of the people free from the ice, and then get them onto each of the triangles.
Let's fucking go! Yes!
And there it is.
Yes! Finally, dude!
So I can't say enough that this is a very RNG heavy run in particular.
Hell yeah.
Just due to it being a randomizer, both with the overworld map, as well as the dungeon layouts.
Hell yeah.
But with consistent
GG.
play and good game knowledge, I was able to close out a sub 20.
Oh, man.
That being said, if you're interested in watching this run without the heavily commentated aspects, you can see the link down below in the info.
When he spawned
But I'm super happy with this time. I've been trying to go for this time for quite a while. And I consider myself an intermediate run. I am by no means a top level runner of this game. Because there are people who consistently get sub 20s, but I'm still very excited about this run, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. Thank you so much for joining me.
Man, that Octavo
in
fight
this
was
video.
so scary, too. That was so slow.